It's time once again to slip into your camo, grab your bow, and join us out in the field for another episode of the Up North Journal, presented by PSE Archery. The Up North Journal crew is knocked and ready to rock for another exciting adventure. So let's step outside and hit the trail.
This episode of the Up North Journal podcast is brought to you by PSE Archery,
Black Eagle Arrows,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Wind Scent Vapor Hunting Scents,
Killer Food Plot Seeds, Supplements, and Attractants,
Cabela's,
Spot Shooters,
Antler Action,
Family Tradition Tree Stands,
and Badass Slingshots. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Up North Journal. Mike and I are back live in the cabin, first time for 2018. Hello, Mike.
Hey. Yeah, I'm a little hoarse tonight.
You're a little hoarse tonight.
Yeah, I haven't seen you since last year. Welcome back. Oh, man. Yeah, so how was your New Year's?
Very good.
Yeah.
It was quiet.
Yeah.
I've just got a message from my wife saying that I should have brought over some miracle broth for you, that because you sound like you're harboring a cold.
Yeah, you're holding out on me on
Mrs.
DeFall's miracle broth?
Yes, yes, I am.
Nice.
But you know what? We're starting off a new year, new show. We got some good news.
Speaking of good news, who are we with?
Well, first of all, we got to talk about the new channel we're on.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Right. Oh, so we are now part of GoodTalkRadio.com. And let me just give you a little overview of Good Talk Radio. It features TV shows and live streaming programs. They also do other podcasts, and they actually do old-time radio. And it's really cool. It's 24/7, and you can go there and pick up different shows. We are scheduled to go
Saturday at noon.
Arizona
time, Mountain Time.
Mountain Time, Arizona time.
2 o'clock Eastern.
And best part is that we think it's family-friendly broadcasting. So go on over to goodtalkradio.com. If you're listening for the first time on there, welcome.
So we're syndicated.
We are syndicated.
All right.
So, but other than that, man, also stay tuned for On the Trail.
On the Trail this week, yep. I just did the latest episode for that this week at work. That's going to air tonight for those of you in the Flint area on ABC 12 at 11 o'clock news tonight. You'll probably see some video in there. You might recognize some people. It was about our ice fishing trip.
Right, exactly. And if everybody remembers, we did some live streaming from ice fishing out on the ice.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, we actually hit double digits today.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah, and it's going to actually get out and thaw this week a little bit.
Right. But you know what? Going into the new year, we thought we'd kind of take a little wrap up from the end of last year by having one of a great friend of ours on the show, the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend, I like to call him,
right.
Lincoln Rohn. Hey, Lincoln, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys, thank you. Appreciate you having me on. Happy New Year to you guys, too.
Yeah, it's good to have you on again. You've been a busy person lately.
Yes, I have.
you know what? If anybody's been watching Facebook, they're a member of the page. Let's kind of recap what you ended up doing for hunting season, because you shot some magnificent bucks, but one of them wasn't here in Michigan.
No, it wasn't. No.
And you know what? So you went to Saskatchewan. How did you do in Illinois?
Well, we actually did really well in Illinois. We saw a lot of bucks, several shooters, and played kind of cat and mouse with them. Kind of a chess match, so to speak, on our lease, and hunted 13 days down there, and came home with no bucks.
Wow! But you saw bucks.
Yes, yeah. It was one of those deals where I had starting out with the bow. First night down there, as a matter of fact, I saw 7 bucks that were probably 130 inches and up, and in one sit, and I had one at 33 yards, and he's kind of behind me a little bit. Had one bush in the way. He had to basically take one more step, and I would have had a wide open shot. And as luck would have it, he took a left and went straight away from me.
Isn't that the way it always works?
I never was able to get a shot. Yeah, and that happened to me a couple times. I had a giant 8-point at about 6 yards straight behind me, and I had made a move earlier, like the day before, and he came in straight exactly from the opposite direction I anticipated him to come in from, and 6 yards straight behind me, could not get turned around, and he caught just a little something, and as the old boys often do, he could tell something wasn't right, and he literally backed up and turned and then just walked straight away from me again, and no shot. So
I swear those bucks, they get together and they talk about this stuff. They go, hey, watch what I'm going to do to this guy. I'm going to go right up behind him.
Right. Right. And just watch his knees rattle for a minute.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But it was cool. You know, that's why they call it hunting and not getting. And,
right.
You know, like I said, we had some great bucks that we saw that we had on camera that, you know, one morning I had just a beautiful 4-year-old, what I would assume would have been an 8-point, comes strolling through. I got all ready, man. I mean, I was ready to rock and roll. He walked right through my wheelhouse. He stops. He looks towards me, and his right side of his horns of his rack is snapped right off just above the G1.
Oh, wow.
So, obviously, I let him continue on his way. But
an old warrior.
So, yep.
Been battling.
Yep. So.
Well, it sounds like it was fun in Illinois anyway. Exciting.
Yeah, we had a great time, and then it was exciting. We saw some deer with a gun too. I went back down there for gun and had my crosshairs on a really nice buck. Not exactly sure, you know, how it was a shooter, no question. And again, he was working a scrape that was literally right underneath a tree stand that I had been hunting. Had the crosshairs on him. He had to take one more step after working the scrape and continue on the runway he was on, and instead, once again, took a right turn and walked straight away from me. No shot.
The deer in Illinois sound educated.
Yeah, they must have crosswalks or something to stay away from people.
Right?
Right. They had my number, I'll tell you.
But you were able to be successful in Saskatchewan, though.
Yes. Yep.
Yep.
So, and I was in Michigan too.
Well, we're getting there. We're just showing how Lincoln Rohn got out last year.
Yeah, we're gonna bounce around. So, yeah, I was able to put together a hunt in Saskatchewan with Cook's Outfitting. He's actually from Fremont, right up by our cabin, and Fremont, Michigan, and he owns an outfitting business in Bestatum, Saskatchewan, and got to talking with him, and just a fantastic guy. I mean, I've become very good friends with Chris. Chris Cook is his name, and he said, "Hey, let's put something together. Let's get you up there." So, wanting to do this my entire life, pretty much, I took advantage of the opportunity, and I went up to Saskatchewan on October 19th. I think we landed, and what an experience! I mean, just absolutely unbelievable. You know, it was a hunt of a lifetime, and I had weather blowing the first day. We had 75-mile-an-hour winds, and was not able to get in the tree. We're blind on the first day.
75-mile-an-hour winds.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. First day. So we weren't even able to get out and shoot our guns because you have to shoot your guns before you hunt. So we were going to go out, you know, first thing in the morning and shoot our guns, so we didn't get there till late.
Mm-hmm.
And so we weren't able to do that. And so that afternoon, they allowed up to about 50 miles an hour, and knowing, you know, that there was going to be trees across all the trails, and, you know, it's the bush for the most part, we had to go out and we cleared about 200 trees off the trails to the blinds. Wow. And just so we could get to them. And so that was pretty much an adventure in itself. And, you know, it was kind of neat actually in the grand scheme of things, because it gave us a chance to see the landscape, or me a chance to see the landscape and see the different blinds and stands. So it was really cool. And so then day two, which with those winds blew in 65-degree weather, and in Saskatchewan, it might as well have been 90 degrees. And, you know, so here we sit, I'm you know, on the hunt of my lifetime, I'm sitting there the second day at 65 degrees, and 12 hours you hunt sun up to sundown. And,
right, exactly. Yeah, you know, like you said, it's a hunt of a lifetime, so you're going to hunt. You're not just going to, you know, you're going to get out there.
Right. Yeah, you pack a lunch, man, and you know, you bring some waters, and you're there. You know, Chris drops you off the blind and picks you up at dark. So, yeah, the first day of hunting, I sat 12 hours and saw 5 deer. but again, it was still windy and it was hot, and we had obviously we know they're there. We had good pictures and everything else, but they just simply weren't moving. So
now
feeling kind of discouraged.
Now, what is this typical weather up there at this time, or is this like an anomaly that we got the high winds, we got the 60-degree is it, or is this kind of
the week after we left, it was they had 6 or 8 inches of snow and it was in the 20s. So
okay, so
which is whether we wanted the cold, maybe not necessarily the snow, but we wanted the cold temperatures because we weren't hunting the rut yet,
right?
And we needed them on their feet to eat, and so they weren't and again being the unseasonably warm, they were just battered up. They weren't moving at all.
They're like, it's too hot for this. We're not moving at all. We're just gonna let you sit in that blind and wait for us. Maybe once in a while we'll walk by just so you make sure that you remember what a deer looks like. You saw 5 for a day.
Well, I was sitting in the blind in Saskatchewan, Canada, and I had my socks on. I'd taken my boots off, and I was sitting in my socks and had my coat off, had my bibs off. It was, and I'm just going, really?
Not your typical Canadian thought hunt.
No, it was just the opposite of what we were anticipating. So I mean, I got a Under Armour Arctic cold gear suit, with 1,600 Thinsulate boots and just all the warm gear, and I mean, it was useless. And
well, at least you could use it here this week.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, you can use it late season here now. But so then day 2, I ended up, same thing. It was warm, and I saw 3 deer in the morning at about 8:30, and never saw another deer. I saw a bunch of coyotes, but in a marten. Never seen a marten before in my life. That was cool. Never saw another deer until about the last 20 minutes of daylight. I'm sitting there, and I had my muzzleloader. I decided on this hunt I wanted to have, I just wanted to throw a little bit of a twist in it without having to, not bring archery equipment, but not bring a 300 short mag either, So I brought my muzzleloader, and I have, Thompson Center Pro Hunter. I'm, off the bench, 200 yards is not a problem at all. I can, hit a tennis ball at 200 yards, repeatedly. So I look out in the field, and I was hunting a wheat field that kind of broke down into the bush. And what stepped out, I couldn't even believe my eyes. I literally, there had been some elk that we were getting pictures of on this particular spot. I literally thought it was an elk. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that thing is gigantic. So I throw the binos on it, and it's a buck. It's a whitetail. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, just an enormous body. I just couldn't even believe what I was seeing. And it was right at that last, 15 or 20 minutes of daylight. So I couldn't really see the rack that great when he had his head down. And I'm just studying him. And he picks his head up. And then I saw, just the heavy beams swinging around. I saw the long G2s. Yeah, I thought I could see, a split on one of the G2s. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's him, that's my shooter right there. He's a monster. So I got my rangefinder on him. I hit him with a rangefinder. It's 180 yards. And I really, really, really wanted to have him inside 150, for a super confident shot. So I thought, well, I do have some daylight left, and he's feeding in the wheat. I'm just going to let him feed, and hopefully he's going to feed into me, right? So I'm sitting there, and he's just moseying, and finally he turns and walks right straight back into the bush.
Oh,
out of my life! Like, you got to be kidding me! Biggest buck of my life, and he just walks away. So, but I literally had taken the gun and brought it back into the window of the blind, and I set it down so that I wouldn't do anything stupid. And I just, you know what I mean? I just did not want to shoot at 180 yards. I just wanted him inside that 150 mark. So anyway, I'm like, well, it's only day 2. I got plenty of time, or it's actually day 3, day 2 of hunting, but, I got plenty of time. So, well, then 5 minutes passes, and all of a sudden the deer steps out onto the bait. And
the same deer?
It's Well, yeah, it turns out. And
okay.
It's just it's a gigantic deer. I'm looking at him through the binos, and it's that, again, now it's that last 10 minutes of light.
So
I'm looking at him through the binos.
So
I can't see.
You're getting down to nitty-gritty time. I tell you what, Lincoln, let's take a break right here, and let's get to the next segment, and let's see what happens with this buck. So
you gonna leave us hanging?
Well, absolutely. Let's just step right out, and we'll be back after this.
PSE Archery has always dominated the speed category. Now, the most revolutionary cam system ever to hit the market has perfected the shooting experience. Introducing PSE's Evolve Cam System, featuring extremely high let-off capabilities and the smoothest draw cycle in history. No other cam system has ever delivered this level of total comfort and total control. Experience PSE. Experience performance.
Killer Food Plots have been helping property owners for over 20 years create premier whitetail habitat. Whether replenishing your soil with their all-natural Organics Fusion pellets or planting a premier KFP food plot seed blend to help your deer rebuild their bodies through spring and summer while supplying the much-needed high energy during and after the rut, you can trust that Killer Food Plots family and their products will help your deer achieve their full potential.
Welcome back, everybody. Second segment of the show. We are on the phone with Lincoln Rohn. We are in Saskatchewan right now.
Yeah, well, Charles Barham's not happy with you for cutting us off right before the break like that, he says.
Tough. But you know what, Lincoln? Here we are. We're in your third day. You're bumping up right against dark. It's starting to get dark on you. You got a deer that's kind of out there, 180 plus yards. You thought he was going to walk in the first time. It didn't happen. But he turns around. All of a sudden, a deer comes into the bait, and what happens?
And I was just looking him over. I just could not tell with his head down. I just could not tell if it was him or not. And I thought it was because it was, it was just an incredibly huge deer. I can't even explain to you how big this deer was. And so finally, there's some popple trees right behind, where the bait was set up on the edge of the field. And finally, he lifts his head up, and boom, I can see, definitely that's him. I'm like, oh yeah, that's him, no question. So I get the gun out the window, I put my 150-yard mark right on him, and right just center mass him right behind the front shoulder, and got set, and I touched it off, man, and of course, the old muzzleloader barks, and deer disappears in a ball of smoke, and smoke clears, and he's gone. So I'm like, well, I was right on him. We'll have to see what happens, So get a text from the outfitter. He's like, was that you? Because he was kind of waiting to come out and get me, And I'm like, yeah, that was me. So he's like, well, what was it? And I'm like, I said, all I know, dude, is the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life. And I said, it's a good one. I mean, there's no question it's a good one. And I said, I'm confident, I'm pretty sure I cleaned his clock, and, I had the 150 mark right on him, and should have put him, should have done his job. So he comes out, he went and picked up Sam, the guy I went with actually first, and then they did about 100 miles an hour across a cow pasture to come and get me, and about hit a cow. Fortunately, they didn't. Yeah, and they get out there, and we get down to the bait site, and sure enough, there's blood immediately, and it was really good blood. And so, I'm obviously feeling pretty confident at that point. Sure enough, we go about 30, 40 yards, and all of a sudden, boom, there's no blood. And we're like, what the heck? And so we did a couple circles, and finally, it was only a few minutes, it seemed like an hour, but I finally found another spot of blood where the deer had taken an immediate left, and took about 3 more steps, and Sam goes, there he is. And I'm just like, oh yeah. So, we go over, I pick him. I was absolutely in awe at the size of this deer. It was basically estimated live weight was about 300 pounds.
Jeez.
It was just a incredible animal. I don't know. I have some pictures of me standing next to it on the buck pole, and it dwarfs me.
You do. If anybody's seen those pictures, yeah, you sit there and you look at it, and it's like, wow. It's just one of those things, and it's just well, I'm talking to you, Mike's going to try to get that picture up, and we'll try to put it on our live stream, show that buck. But so here you are.
Okay, yeah.
You're now looking at this buck that you saw it out on the hoof. You're now able to put your hands on this animal. You're talking 300 pounds. Just because you did get one here in Michigan as well. What's the mindset that you were thinking? A Michigan buck and now this buck.
Well, this buck was. I knew immediately that this buck was going to be the biggest buck of my life. I mean, my biggest buck to date in Michigan was 130 inches, and which is for Newaygo County, where we hunt northwest corner of Newaygo County. That's a fantastic buck. But that's the biggest buck I've ever shot, and so I knew this buck was going to be the biggest buck of my life. I was absolutely humbled to be sitting behind him, and I started getting emotional right on the spot.
That's awesome. And, that's where that passion and love for the sport, it just overtakes you. It just you're becoming emotional, but it's all that adrenaline dump. It's everything you worked for to get there, and all of a sudden here it is, and you've done it.
Yep. Yeah, it was amazing, and again, it was humbling. I'm sitting behind this animal, this majestic, 5.5-year-old, 300-pound Canadian whitetail that, ended up scoring 147 and an eighth. And yes, there's bigger bucks out there, but that buck is everything I went to Canada for. Massive, the antler, the mass it carries. It had like 34 inches of mass. It had, long tines. It had stickers. It had a split G2. Gigantic chocolate buck, just everything I ever dreamt of.
Is the picture with you and this buck, by chance we're looking at it online right now. We're trying to get it up for everybody to see. Is it with you are you wearing hunter's orange with a gentleman with a beard?
Yes.
Yes, that's the one. All right. Just give us a second. We're going to put it on the live feed so everybody can see this buck that you're talking about, that you're now emotionally spent over this buck, and it's a buck of a lifetime for you. That's just amazing.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and I think Chris, the outfitter, I think I might have broke a rib or two on him when I hugged him. Pretty sure I did. I picked him up and gave him a bear hug he'll never forget. So.
Hey, I kind of don't blame you there, because that's just amazing. Because it took you it just wasn't just a let's hop on the truck and go out there. It took you a while to get there in the first place. Then you were up against the winds, up against the weather, and then you're in your third day. You're not seeing a lot of deer, and everybody can see on our live stream now that this is the buck that Lincoln is talking about that he's holding in his hands here. And it's incredible, and it's awesome that you can do this, and you pulled it off.
Yeah, it was cool, and it's one of those things, and you put the time in, you put the, we flew up there, we had to drive 3 hours to get to the camp. It's just, basically one full day of travel. And, you do put a lot of stock in your outfitter when you do something like that. And, Chris didn't disappoint, and, he brought me what I went there for, and, the buck of a lifetime and the hunt of a lifetime. And so, the other cool part of this whole adventure was after shooting that buck, I still had, with Sam and I made a pact that, we weren't going to leave each other. So if I shot, I wasn't going to fly out and go home. We were staying until the other person tagged out. So it gave me a chance to kind of play outfitter for the next couple of days with Chris. And that was just to cap off the whole entire trip, and the adventure was, being able to be out in the bush and, go to these various spots. I saw the first moose I've ever seen in my life out in the wild. We saw 3 great big cows, and then we saw 1 nice bull. We saw, even just like driving out, going to these different spots, we saw, I can't even tell you these bucks that we were seeing on the hoof out there. It was insane. And we went to, we go to a processor to drop the deer off, and, there's moose heads laying there, and it's just something that you just don't see on every day. And I ended up getting a shed off of one of the processors. He had a box full of sheds, and this freaking shed is just enormous. And he was just like, yeah, we pick them up in the field so they don't get the tractor tires. I'm going, good Lord. So I said, what do you want for that thing? He's like, I don't know. What do you give me for it? I'm like, I don't know. What do you want for it?
You have no idea.
Right. He's like, I don't know. So I said, how about $20 US? He goes, sold. You know, I mean, and he has no idea that he just sold me something, you know. I mean, this thing is just so incredible. And I got it, you know, it's on my coffee table at home right now, you know. So,
That's
it was
awesome.
something else.
That's awesome.
Absolutely something else.
I know, you know,
So
and that's where kind of we're having you on. We talked about in the beginning of the show, Illinois. Now we talked about Saskatchewan. Yep. Now bring it back home, and how did you do home for hunting season?
Well, we had some great bucks on camera up at our cabin, northwest Nuevo County. We had 3 bucks that we were really excited about. 3 of the biggest bucks we've ever had on the property. We had called one hook, one was Showtime, and the other one was Twin Towers. And opening day rolls around, you know, we did all the food plots and whatnot. We had a serious drought the last month of September. And so, you know, our food plots were, you know, they were pretty decent, just not, you know, not really kicking. We knew there was no, we had 0 acorns around us. And so we were getting, you know, a lot of good deer movement on our food plots. And so opening morning, bright and early, 7:30 opening morning, I turn to my left, I look, and here comes 3 deer, and a doe, and then a buck I've never seen before. Turns, I could clearly see, is a very, very, very nice 3-year-old, which that's what we're targeting. We're trying to shoot 3 years old and older up there. And then Twin Towers was behind him. And I'm like, holy crap, I do not know who that deer is, you know. And so I'm going, do I shoot Twin Towers or I shoot him? Or I'm like, no, I'm shooting him, because Twin Towers was a local. I mean, he was a regular. I was getting pictures of him all the time. So the deer turns at 30 yards or 31 yards. I was able to range him, and I had shoulder surgery early. That's the other cool part, is I had some shoulder surgery in June, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to hunt, to be honest with you, this year. I did what my surgeon told me. I did physical therapy like you can't believe, just to
trying to get it back.
Yeah, you know, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to climb a tree. So anyway, I was using a crossbow, and 31 yards, and he's quartering away. I put the crosshairs right behind, you know, the backside of his rib cage, pulled the trigger, and Bronco kicks, takes off, goes about 40 yards, goes behind some trees, and I hear him crash, and I'm just like, are you kidding me right now? Opening morning, 7:30.
October 1, 7:30 a.m.
Yep.
Here it is. You're all done.
Yep. So get down, I go over there, and I pick him up, and I'm just like, wow, you know, just a fantastic. And then he ended up scoring 119 and 5/8, and I'm here to tell you, for our area where we hunt, you know, that's a great buck, and I'm super happy with him. So so that was opening day, you know, and then one other bonus to this year was, while I was in Saskatchewan, I passed up a really, really nice 8-point a couple different times, and then my son called he was in the Marine Corps for 4 years, so this is his first year home being able to hunt. And he said, Dad, do you mind if I hunt your tree stand? I'm like, sure. You know, hell, I just killed the biggest buck of my life. I don't care. I'll jump in there, man. Kill that freaking buck, you know. So he jumps up in there, and I'll be darned if the next morning, the first time in, first morning, he hunted it. That 8-point comes in, 22 yards, smokes it, goes 30 yards, piles up, calls me from the tree stand. You know. And I'm just, you know, you talk about emotional. Shoot, I'm getting emotional right now.
That's awesome.
That was cool.
That's awesome. That goes to show you the passion you have and that you have for this sport, and also kind of leads us into what we're going to talk about in our next segment, is the passion you have for Michigan hunting and what you do for Michigan with Michigan Let 'em Go, Let 'em Grow. So let us step out for another break, and we'll talk about that after this.
So what do you do when you've completely redefined the way bows are engineered? When you've reached the pinnacle and the band starts playing your victory song, you start a revolution out of thin air. Introducing the all-new PSE Carbon Air, engineered with true carbon technology to be the lightest high-performance bow in the world. Experience PSE. Experience performance.
Killer Food Plots have been helping property owners for over 20 years create premier whitetail habitat. Whether replenishing your soil with their all-natural Organics Fusion pellets or planting a premier KFP food plot seed blend to help your deer rebuild their bodies through spring and summer while supplying the much-needed high energy during and after the rut, you can trust that Killer Food Plots family and their products will help your deer achieve their full potential.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Third segment of the show, first show of 2018. Mike is over in the corner choking. That's why I'm leading the charge here. But we got on the phone with us Lincoln Rohn tonight. Matter of fact, if you listen to the first two segments, you heard about his Illinois experience, his Saskatchewan experience, and then Michigan experience. But one of the big things Lincoln Rohn has been able to do in Michigan was form a group. And on Facebook, Michigan, let them go, let them grow. And I tell you what, you are now at over 30,000 members?
Yes.
On that page? 30,000 people are joining this page.
Yeah, we've got just crossed over 30,000 earlier, a couple weeks ago, as a matter of fact. We've added about 10,000 new members since deer season has opened. So it's growing big time.
That's awesome.
And I got to give it a plug. The name is Michigan Deer Hunters. Let them go and let them grow.
I was going to say, why don't you tell everybody out there just a little bit about them, where you can find them on Facebook, and just give a background of how you got to be where you are today.
Well, I started this group about 6 years ago, roughly, and I had gone to I had done a lot of research on antler point restrictions, and basically I started the group because of dissatisfaction with Michigan hunting, and that's the bottom line why I did it, and wanted something better for not just myself but my kids, my grandkids, and everybody, and
right.
So I started this group, and I had done a lot of research on it, on the antler point restrictions, and I had met up with some guys from the LPDMI that were looking at, how the Northwest 12 was put together, and I just started this group to gain support for antler point restrictions, and never dreamt in a million years that I'd end up where I'm at today, and I've had a lot of help along the way. I've had Dean Smith, who's one of my other administrators, has been with me pretty much almost day one, and I've got a great group of people that are helping now. There's 9 of us total, I think, moderators and administrators, and that's the main focal point of the group, is to get antler point restrictions implemented in the balance of Michigan. It's been a battle. It's been an uphill battle. We've lost some of those battles.
I was just going to ask you. I know we talked about it on the show. We had you on the show before, but this past year, at the beginning of the year, you guys were making your public appearances, talking with the NRC, going there before them, traveling over the state to find them, to sit down and talk with them at the public openings, and then lo and behold, come June, when they gave their recommendations, it kind of was a big kick in your gut.
Yeah, it was, especially. There's been quite a few things that have happened along the way this year, especially, and we've been working with the DNR right along. I participated in a work group or a focus group called the R3 group. It was a group focusing on retention, recruitment, and reactivation of Michigan deer hunters, and through this whole process, basically, the bottom line was, with all the surveys that we did, this was an expensive endeavor. It was like $160,000 that was spent on these surveys and this process, not to mention volunteer time and department time. And, it came out basically at the end of the day that antler point restrictions were widely accepted by the majority of Michigan hunters. And what really keyed us in was younger hunters were in huge support of it. And that's really who we need to focus on, in my opinion. And so anyway, through this R3 work group, we go through the process. We were told that I was flat out told by Russ Mason, and not just myself, but there was another individual that was told this, that we were not going to have to go through this process if it came out, that antler point restrictions were, basically what we felt, to be our next move. We weren't going to have to go through all this process. Well, that was not true. I had been misled on several occasions as far as, in the last year, as far as what the department was going to do. They were going to run a survey at their expense for what we call the middle finger and for the knuckles. That didn't happen. I was given a bunch of excuses as to why we couldn't do it, and I had this person's word. Russ Mason gave me his flat-out word. I said, we talked on the phone. I said, do I have your word on this? And he said, you have my word. And so I take a man for his word. We go through the process, and it all got snowballed in June last year. I mean, it was unbelievable what happened. We had Chad Stewart at the Scottville meetings. Chad Stewart was testifying to the NRC that all of the data that they had from the Northwest 12 was extremely compelling as far as many different things. Increased Doe Harvest. It increased Doe Harvest 12% compared to the surrounding areas. There was it definitely indicated hunter satisfaction. After they did the survey to extend the north, or to make the Northwest 12 APRs permanent, 76% of the hunters that were surveyed in that area approved of antler point restrictions.
Sounds like a majority to me.
Yeah, that in itself should tell you almost everything you need to know. I mean, you can't get 76% of a populace to agree that chocolate donuts are good.
Right, exactly. And I also think in the data showed that it was also helping out the economy up there.
Yeah, there's store owners that were doing, they're literally doing backflips. The place has been dying for the last 10 years. If you look at charts, Leelanau County is the only county in Michigan that has been under antler point restrictions prior to the Northwest 12 for approximately 10 years. They're the only county in Michigan that did not lose double-digit hunters. And then if you look at the Northwest 12 prior to the implementation of APRs, there was as much as 30% hunter loss in some of those counties, 25%, 30%, 18%. And yet Leelanau County, the only county in the state that was under antler point restrictions, lost zero hunters, same exact hunters, and so that's pretty compelling in itself.
That kind of goes to show you that, just like you said, you want some compelling information. You've gained the economy, and one county hasn't lost hunters, and
right.
You've got just about 75% approval rating for doing what they're doing in that area. That's three items right there that I think are pretty compelling to me, that kind of pointing you down an avenue to go after. So
yeah,
and
without question,
it is, and and then we come to June, and then that happens, and then it's like a setback, and then you I know we watch you guys, we talk, go into these public. It gives you a bad taste in your mouth that the powers that be that sit up there.
Well,
right.
For people who don't know, Russ Mason is head of the NRC. And the NRC is a controlling body. The Natural Resource Commission is a controlling body who govern the DNR.
Yeah, actually, Russ Mason he's the actual chief of the Wildlife Division.
Chief of Wildlife, okay.
And
I didn't know what his exact title was, but
yeah. So he, and again, I've been in constant contact with the DNR, over the last several years, but especially in the last 18 months. And even after the Scottsville meeting, he's made me promises. He's asked me for some time until some of these, CWD things could be worked out, blah, blah, blah. And then he has not followed through with anything that he has promised me. And I shame on me, for trusting somebody that I figured out as an absolute politician and no other. That's all I can say.
Right.
Well, without editing, yeah.
Right. And, I was misled on several occasions. He didn't carry through with some of the things he told me. And then to add insult to injury, he published a article recently in the Michigan Outdoor News, totally second-guessing the department's own data. I mean, all of the data that we use and that we, and it's been fact-checked, and, all of this data that we use that supports antler point restrictions comes from the Department of Natural Resources.
Right.
So, then he comes on and writes this article that, that we indeed don't have, or we have just barely a majority of hunters wanting APRs. Well, the way they calculate that, they take out the no opinions because those people have no opinion.
Right.
So it actually gives you a 64% approval rating for APRs. Through this art, in last year, there was 250,000 people in Michigan were surveyed specifically about antler point restrictions, and 64% said that they would approve of them. So,
okay. So here we are. This wasn't an interview of Russ Mason. This was his own words. This
was his article.
This was his article to write. And he wrote this article.
Yeah, he said
so.
It, yeah.
So he said all this.
It into Michigan Outdoor News.
Right, exactly. And he writes this, and the first paragraph about CWD and APRs not being compatible, and from that point on, I was like, wait, time out. And it's kind of funny. Right. You talked about something that in the Northwest 12 that is very important, and people should know this because they increase their doe shooting, right?
Yep.
And matter of fact, Mike was at that rendezvous last night, and they said about increasing their doe shooting.
Yep.
So it's playing right into kind of they need you to shoot more does.
Yep.
So why don't you do something to shoot more does? Yeah. So
there's a lot of information given last night in support of whether you want to call it APRs, whether you want to call it QDMA, whether you want to call it Doe harvesting, whatever name you want to put on it. All this goes together, and it all works to combat disease. And the facts are there to prove it. I mean, we were given information last night that was given the first time it was made public. This is going out for a peer review, and it's going to be published this year. This stuff's been this person that's got this info has been studying this for years.
It's not his first rodeo.
It's not his first rodeo.
No, they've been doing this for 21 years, and it's that what he shared last night was incredible, and that's the other thing that really APRs are actually very compatible with combating CWD because of the exact fact that it does increase doe harvest. But when you take yearling bucks off the table, you automatically by default put more pressure on yearling bucks, and it happens across the board. Plus, you can also there's also ways to incentivize it. I mean, you can put out a few more antlerless tags, or you can make this just say the secondary combo tag. Make it a either sex tag.
Right.
There's a lot of different things you can do, but just APRs alone increased antlerless harvest 12% in the Northwest 12, and so it compared to surrounding areas. So that in itself should be Michigan deer hunters are very, very adept at killing deer.
Exactly, and they were talking earlier in the season that they were in the CWD areas that they weren't getting the participation that they wanted. You think there might be a link here?
Yes, because why would I go to a leprosy colony to hunt? I mean, that's basically, you know what I'm saying? And there's no carrot within these disease zones, there's absolutely no carrot. Okay, I'm going to use my Saskatchewan hunt as an example. Okay, I go to Saskatchewan. Deer density is very low up there. Okay, I hunted over 24 hours in the blind. I saw 8 deer. Okay, I didn't say one word about being upset about that. I killed the biggest buck of my life.
Right.
Okay, so that's what I talk about. I don't talk about the low densities. Guys, you have to have, if you're gonna hunt and have guys that are happy and engaged in lower deer densities, you have to have better quality bucks. Mm-hmm. Simple as that.
Right. You got exactly. You got to have the odds are that you're going to see lower deer numbers, but when you do, the odds are that you're going to see a decent buck to you that like your buck you saw knocked your socks off, and here it is. You saw 8 deer, and you shot the buck of a lifetime. So here in Michigan, I hate to say it, but some of these people, if they don't see a deer in 5 minutes, they're bored. They're bored, packing up and heading out of the woods all mad.
Right. Yeah. Right. But then you throw a 2 or 3 year old 8-point in front of them, and they're going to forget all about not seeing 20 deer that set. And guys, listen, the days of Michigan hunters seeing 30 and 40 deer per sit have to be over.
Yep.
They have to be. Otherwise, we're just not going to have a deer herd because CWD is a very big deal. It's very serious, but it can be managed accordingly. And in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinion, when the NRC goes against a flat-out DNR recommendation to re-implement a baiting ban in 2 counties, and then says, we're going to go against. And I don't want to start a baiting issue, because I bait, and I think 2-gallon limit is an excellent way to let guys still bait, but yet not let it get out of hand. Mm-hmm. But when the DNR says the most common thing that's going to cause disease spread is baiting and high deer densities, then the NRC re-implements baiting for those 2 counties on the TB zone. Mm-hmm. I mean, what? What happened to scientific evidence, scientific, management?
Right, exactly. And I've said this a couple times now. Colorado has dealt with CWD since the 60s. So they must have some kind of formula model, whatever they do out there, that they maintain it and watch it. So I don't
low deer densities.
I don't think it's that hard to kind of ask them for a little help and say. And I know Anna Mirling said they did have a forum where they all got together and said, "Hey," but it's like in here again. Lincoln points out, you talk to them and they don't do anything.
I know it.
So it's very.
And the other thing that's frustrating is you have a group with 30,000 people in it, and you have that's Michigan Deer Hunters Let Them Go, Let Them Grow. You have Quality Deer Management Association. We work closely with QDMA. I'm good friends with many board members on QDMA. I talk to the Michigan State president almost daily, Eric Snell, and we work together. You have 2 very, very, huge groups of Michigan deer hunters that want nothing more than to help the DNR with some of these issues.
Exactly. We're
But they won't. But they're tying their hands behind our backs, and they want partnership, but they don't want a partner.
Right. Exactly. And then it doesn't help them when it doesn't help them when they shoot themselves in their own foot by not having a good communication set.
Right.
So you know what? Yep. We're running up onto our last break. Give us 1 minute. Let us step out, and we'll be back after this for our last segment.
I shoot PSE because I like 1 pin to 40 yards.
I shoot PSE for the perfect combination of feel and performance.
I shoot PSE because you can shoot lighter poundage and increase arrow speed.
I shoot PSE for the fastest bows on the planet. I shoot PSE because my livelihood depends on my bow.
I shoot PSE because better engineering makes a better bow.
I shoot PSE.
I shoot PSE.
I shoot PSE. I shoot PSE.
Experience PSE. Experience performance.
Killer Food Plots have been helping property owners for over 20 years create premier whitetail habitat. Whether replenishing your soil with their all-natural Organics Fusion pellets or planting a premier KFP food plot seed blend to help your deer rebuild their bodies through spring and summer while supplying the much-needed high energy during and after the rut, you can trust that Killer Food Plots family and their products will help your deer achieve their full potential.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Last segment of the show, 2018, our first segment of the year. We've been talking deer hunting, wrapping up here with Lincoln Rohn. We've now come back to Michigan. We're talking about Michigan, Michigan's Let 'em Go, Let 'em Grow group that he's heading up, 30,000 members strong. We're talking about the Russ Mason letter.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, I was trying to get that out. Kind of recapping how Lincoln's kind of went through the year with dealing with them and not getting being told one thing, other things happen.
Well, and you know that the event I was at last night, we live streamed that. We had some really great info, and for the people who may be listening and not understand what I'm talking about, I'm actually going to take that. I'm going to cut that up into smaller pieces and put each segment out on our Facebook page, and everybody can share it and get that information out as to what we're talking about.
Right, exactly. So, but just before the break, we were talking about trying to help the DNR. But Lincoln, you got some information you want to talk about the Doe Harvest, which they said we need to shoot more does.
Right on.
Yeah. So the average, I think our does shot per buck. We're one of the few states that actually shoots more bucks than we do does.
And you know what? Not to interrupt you, but that is one thing. Sure. Kip Adams, QDMA, that was one of the first things that he pointed out and said, you know what's really strange, you guys? I looked at data and you guys don't shoot any does.
Right.
Hint, hint.
Right. Yeah. It's become and it's ingrained in our tradition that we shoot bucks, and we need to change that. And hey, listen, the tides are changing. We are doing better, but antler point restrictions is going to speed that process up 20-fold. And so we shoot more bucks than we do does. We shoot 0.8 does per buck statewide. We did a survey with QDMA and Michigan Deer Hunters Let 'em Go, Let 'em Grow members, and our members shoot 1.4 does per buck. So almost twice the statewide average. And I say that because by and large, people that are in support of antler point restrictions are also very tuned in with, their deer herd. They have goals that they've set. They have, they're working on managing their herd. And, if we don't start eliminating one of the things that the department likes to bank on is that older bucks have a higher prevalence rate than does. And that is true. However, everybody that hunts in Michigan knows that having older bucks, they don't exist. I mean, they're so few and far between. We don't have, so the prevalence rate is higher in older bucks, but we have 150 times more older does than we do older bucks. And so, the prevalence rate in older does or in does is lower than bucks. Yes, but we have 10 times more does.
Correct. And
so there's more disease in does than bucks.
Right. So there's actually the disease is coming through the doe cohort, and it's being transmitted to the family group. In winter, winter yarding areas. And then the yearling bucks, of course, are in that group,
yep, exactly.
And then they're dispersing, and the older does are kicking them out of the area, so they're traveling on. So we have to start shooting does, and we have to do a better job at it, and we have to really, really be mindful of targeting older, more mature does. And through the data that was shared last night, that is compelling to say, shoot holes in your deer herd. I mean, shoot holes for these bucks to move into.
Right.
And if you see a doe, shoot it. If you think it's, a 1 or a 2 or 3 year old, If you think it's I think what did he do? He categorized them in
immature,
three
mature,
categories.
and post mature.
Yeah, and post mature.
Or past
if you
mature.
think that deer is mature, then you shoot it, and you let the chips fall where they fall.
Yeah,
and,
Wayne Sitton last night gave a great explanation on that part of it on the doe, the doe herds and how to recognize those. And basically, he said anything past 4.5-year-old, make sausage out of it. Put it in the freezer and be done with it, because your return on investment, you're not getting anything for it.
Exactly, and we do have a question out from one of our listeners, Dave Ketterman. Wouldn't more does produce more bucks?
Depends on what age they are.
Exactly, and they talked about that last night as well. I've
seen it proven at the deer necropsy at Turtle Lake. I've watched one, and I've been part of 2 others, and that's what changed my mind 6-7 years ago. My whole mindset changed because I actually seen it. They were not predicting. They were going to tell you exactly what was coming out of those does, the fetuses, when they did the necropsy.
Yep.
And they were
as soon as they knew how old that deer was, they told you what was going to be coming out of it.
Yep. They're spot on.
The age of the doe reflects on what what they'll throw.
Yep.
Right? So
Dave, actually, if you go to our live stream last night and go to about, I think it's an hour and 10 minutes into that second part, and listen to what Manager Wayne Sitton had to say.
Right. If you watch the Wayne Sitton segment, you'll get a lot of this information that we're talking about now, because
it's priceless. It's absolutely priceless information.
And like we said,
it will change the way you look at it.
Exactly, and exactly what he said. What he told everybody last night was that this was going out. It's going to be published. So this isn't no, hey, look what I found. But yeah, and that's it. It's the age. It's age of the does will tell you what the bucks are going to do. And Mike, you shot some old does this year.
All of our does came back 3.5 years old and older. All except for one, which I didn't get an age on. We took 13 off of our place. We had one that was 12.5, 9.5, 8.5, 6.5, 7.5. 6.5 and up was the average. 6.5 to 12.5.
Wow.
It's just mind blowing.
Yeah, that's the worst. Those are the worst deer that we can possibly have in our landscape right there.
Exactly.
What are they going to do? They're going to take the best habitat. They're going to kick the yearling bucks out and save that habitat for themselves. Get them out of there and let them habitat.
And how many pounds of forage did you say each doe eats?
6 pounds a day. I've heard 5, and now you're saying 6.
Oh, he said 6.
Yeah, 5 to 6. Yeah. So do the math. How much tonnage can you?
6 pounds of forage that nobody else is going to be able to take up. Your bucks are going to be fighting for food, and so it's incredible information. I shot a doe this year too with my crossbow. I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and we ended up shooting 8 on our property, and they were they ranged from 2 years old all the way up. I think the one I shot was I got yanking the jaw out of it. They're saving it for me up at the M37 meat shack, but I'm pretty sure that deer's about 4.5, maybe 5.5. So we shot 8 does off our 160 acres, and we could have shot more.
Yep, that's the way, and the thing is he said, once you start shooting does, you can't let up. The math and the science support what he's talking about. I'm telling you guys, you need to go watch this interview. I'm going to cut it up this week, hopefully before we go to ATA, and put it back out there in that short version, so you don't have to watch 2 hours plus of that.
And Brandon's got a point here up on Facebook. It's tough to kill the doe numbers we need to taken out when we're allowed one doe tag in our area. I always try to fill combo tags with does.
It does.
If I don't kill a mature buck.
Yeah, I shot my doe with my combo tag.
Right, exactly.
I didn't draw a doe tag, and I had a conversation with Russ about that too. I said, "You're screaming at us to shoot more does, but I can't draw a freaking doe tag for New Idaho County."
Right.
Are you kidding me right now?
Right.
And
you're going to send me one in the mail?
And then what I'm facing in the UP right now is I can't shoot any does because the deer numbers are really down, according to the DNR. And they're worried about CWD coming across the border because it was within 30 miles of the Michigan border up there. But yet, don't shoot any does because we're telling you that the numbers are down. Well, that's a catch-22.
Andy Eberhardt says that equates to about 2 tons per year per doe or per deer. Okay, so think about that. 2 tons. How much forage can you grow on your land? Natural browse up where we're at in Elk County, our carrying capacity is about 10 to 15 deer per square mile. what did our last count? We've got a section, 640 acres. That's a section, and we've got roughly 150 to 200 deer on our property. So what kind of tonnage do you think we need to produce? I mean, come on now, really?
Right.
And that's the reason our browse line is so high.
You actually, to be optimal, you want to be under carrying capacity.
Yeah.
You don't want to be at carrying capacity. You want to be, actually considerably under carrying capacity.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If nobody else takes anything out of this whole entire podcast, take it to the bank that you need to watch that video that you guys are going to post, because it's incredible information. So
yeah, it changed my mind. Like I said, 5, 6, 7 years ago when I went, and I went 2 years in a row, and I seen it with my own eyes, and it's just it made complete 100% sense to me. What they're saying is true. When you can actually see it for yourself. It changes your mind. It really does. So
yeah, and I totally agree. Last year. I knew when they were flopping deer up on the counter. You knew darn well when he said it's 3.5. You knew what you were going to see.
Yep.
And if there was an 8-year-old, you knew what you were going to see. It's like, every time.
Yeah, isn't it amazing?
So,
it's like, these guys know what they're talking about. They've done this for over 20 years.
Exactly. And Dave Cadman says on Facebook, if the DNR doesn't address the issues, then it's up to us hunters. Thank you for creating the awareness. Well, that's the whole point of having Lincoln on.
Yeah.
And getting the word out through Let 'em Go, Let 'em Grow is creating that awareness. Getting the word out that, APRs can help with the CWD. It all works together. Now that Wayne.
Well, and that's the other thing I do want to touch on too, really quick, is we understand the APRs are a tool. Okay,
right.
It's not going to be our fix all. We know that, but APRs coupled with Doe Harvest increased and better education as far as moving forward of why we need to shoot these does, and we'd have if a lot of guys want more antler restrictions than what we're offering. And we'd have another 15,000 people on our page if we were, asking for an age requirement.
Right.
So,
So I got a question for you from Andy Eberhard. So why push for APRs when we need to focus on Doe Harvest? Seems more important for the overall herd health.
Well, one of the reasons is because you have to have hunter participation, and we know that antler point restrictions are going to be better for hunter participation. They're going to, as we've said before, they definitely increase antlerless harvest and these are numbers right here in Michigan from the Northwest 12. They increase antler harvest by 12% in that area compared to surrounding areas, and actually within this. Check this out. So within the CWD core areas, you can shoot whatever you want, however many deer you want. You can shoot there's no restriction on your combo tags, nothing. You can shoot whatever you want. There's fewer fewer does being shot within the core areas of CWD than there are outside of the CWD area. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to have some sort of a bone to throw people.
You said it before. You got to throw that carrot out there to get them out there.
Yeah,
and to expand on that just a little bit.
You got to
last night.
To be okay with lower deer numbers, you gotta give them something. So
well, Wayne Sitton, he's talked about this before. He didn't mention it last night per se, but I've heard him say this before at the deer necropsies. When you have an older age class of bucks on your property or in the herd, let's just say the herd, it tightens the rut up. You have more mature bucks fighting and being aggressive to breed these does, which tightens the rut up, which also makes sure that your does get bred on time. When your does get bred on time and they don't go into a second estrus or a third estrus, you don't have those bucks chasing later in the season because they don't have time to recover. Running them until January. When you run them into January, there's no forage left for them. Okay, so then they become coyote bait. Number one. Okay, now let's take this into the fawning season. What does it do to the fawns? Now you spread that fawn drop from a 2-week period of time to almost 3 months. So if you got, let's say you got 100 does, and let's say just for numbers, they're going to throw twin fawns just on average. Okay, what was it? One point they said 175 last night. When you've got 100 doe, the average fawn drop is 175. Now let's take that and spread that out over 3 months. What happens?
Instead of 3 weeks.
Instead of 3 weeks, your predator population takes more of your fawns. You have less fawn recruitment. See, it's not just, hey, we're trophy hunting, we want to shoot big racks. There's science behind why you want to shoot older bucks and let the young ones grow, because those are your breeders. Those are the ones that are going to fight aggressively and keep after those does and get them bred and get everything taken care of and tighten that rut up.
Yep,
and
exactly.
It helps on fawn recruitment later on.
And I'm here to tell you, it's a whole lot more fun hunting a mature a buck herd with more mature animals in it than it is without, because exactly that. It's more intense, and I mean it's fun. Plus, when you do start passing young bucks, without all this, putting all this other stuff aside, it's a lot more fun hunting. I'm here to tell you, when you're sitting there watching 2 or 3 bucks underneath you fighting and carrying on, and it's cool to watch them interact.
There you
Some
go.
of my best hunts this year. Some of my best hunts this year, I never released an arrow. So.
And when you have more fun out in the woods, you get more people out there. It's easier for people to get out and enjoy it. Just like you said, it's like getting the younger people out there.
Recruitment.
Everything needs to happen.
Well, I'll tell you what, we need to wrap up the podcast portion. We can continue the live stream for a few moments here and let people ask some questions, but we're going to sign off on the podcast right now. And don't forget, you can catch us over on Good Talk Radio at goodtalkradio.com. Saturdays, Mountain Time at noon, which is 2 o'clock Eastern.
And here for you folks in Michigan, if you want to check out Let 'Em Go, Let 'Em Grow, you can find them out on their Facebook page, and you can check it out and see what they're all about.
Absolutely. So we're going to sign off the podcast. Oh, go ahead, Lincoln, real quick. You said you.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Thank you for what you guys are doing to help spread the word about this issue here in Michigan and what we're faced with. And I really appreciate it. I really do.
Hey, we all do it because we care.
Many other people. We have a lot of time invested in this, and we appreciate it.
It's not just that. It's something that you touched upon real quick in Saskatchewan. Your passion and your emotions came out just like my passion and my emotion came out when Kelly got her first buck. That's why we do it.
That's why we do it.
Yep. So.
All right, that'll do it for us this week on the podcast, folks. This episode was brought to you by PSE Archery,
Black Eagle Arrows,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Wind Scent Vapor Hunting Scents,
Killer Food Plot Seeds, Attractants, and Supplements,
Cabela's,
Spot Shooters,
Antler Action,
Family Traditions Tree Stands,
and Badass Slingshots.
Thanks for listening, and join us again here next week. Until then, remember, as we always like to say, if you're out on the water or in the woods, shoot straight and be safe. Until next week on the Up North Journal.